The Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch, walked out with Asuka's Money in the Bank briefcase after teases all day long on Monday that Becky Lynch was going to be on Raw to make some sort of major announcement. Now, originally, the advertising said that she was going to be there to confront the Women's Money in the Bank winner. And then during the day on Monday, that changed to her having some kind of a major announcement. She came down, she said that she was torn between joy and sadness, and it was obvious what the big news was. I mean, she's out there, she's holding back tears. She says that she told WWE management ahead of Money in the Bank to up the stakes in the Money in the Bank match. And that's when Asuka came out and she was acting all wacky and crazy and she was all upset that Becky had her briefcase. And Becky admitted, she says, Asuka, you have been the best wrestler in the world for a long time. And she opened the briefcase to reveal not a contract for a Raw Women's title match, but the Raw Women's title itself. And she said the Money in the Bank match wasn't for a title match. It was actually for the championship. And Asuka is hereby the new Raw Women's Champion. You could see Asuka's eyes were all welling up. And then came the big reveal that Becky Lynch has impregnated Seth Rollins, and the two of them are going to have a little baby Messiah. You go be a warrior, she told Asuka. I'm going to be a mother. And then she started crying, and Asuka looked so shocked, genuinely shocked and happy, and the two of them embraced. Asuka then started celebrating like she won the Super Bowl. Devon Dudley, he's a producer behind the scenes for WWE. He did a podcast interview claiming that nobody knew, not even Asuka, that was her genuine reaction to the news. Nobody in the back knew. I mean, I'm sure Vince McMahon knew. I would hope that Seth Rollins knew. Otherwise, that might explain his catatonic state later on in the show. That reaction may have been a little more real than we were led on to believe from Seth. But no, Devon said, like all the women that were back there, they were shocked. He said even one of the heels, one of the bad guys, it wasn't Nia Jax, it was somebody else. I don't want to say her name. I mean, he basically did. I mean, you may as well just say it was Shayna Baszler, who also reacted with shock and glee, and everybody was so happy. Let me say this about Asuka, and then I'll get into all the Becky stuff. Asuka has very quietly become one of the most decorated champions in WWE history. She's been the Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion, NXT Women's Champion for, 500 plus days, I think it was. Undefeated. Women's Tag Team Champion. First ever Women's Royal Rumble winner. And now a Money in the Bank winner. So if you go by accomplishments, storyline, but if you go by accomplishments and all the different, kind of top positions that she's been put into in this company, that's a Hall of Fame resume right there. She will go down as one of the greatest of all time. And hopefully she has, many more years left to come. But Asuka will go down as one of the all-time greats when it comes to women's wrestlers, and deservedly so, because Asuka is very good at what she does. And I understand that she's, going to probably end up being a transitional champion, but she deserves to be in this spot. And you know what? You could quibble about how they did it. Oh, it's like Triple H when Eric Bischoff handed him the World Heavyweight title. But I can't hate on the fact that where we have ended up is Asuka being the Raw Women's Champion. They couldn't do a tournament. I saw some criticism. Well, how come they couldn't just put the title up in a tournament? They're already doing a tournament. They just started a tournament on television this week to crown a new Intercontinental Champion, and I'm going to talk about that later as well. At the same time, they're actually doing two tournaments because they have a tournament going on NXT to crown an NXT Interim Cruiserweight Champion. You cannot do 3 tournaments at once. It is overkill. And you can't do a proper Battle Royal if you're limited in how many people that you can have in the ring at one time. So they didn't really have very many good options other than making a match in the main event for the end of the show. But then who's the match between? It's too early to put Asuka in the ring to beat Shayna Baszler. Right? Asuka won Money in the Bank. She should get some kind of reward for that. I have no problem. In this instance, I understand why they couldn't do a tournament. I have no issue with them doing what they did. And this also felt like, it felt like a passing of the torch. Becky is leaving, and now Asuka will be, for now, at the top of the division, at least for a short time, until Shayna Baszler takes the title from her, which I'm sure she is going to do. Now, CM Punk on WWE Backstage said that he thought it was a missed opportunity. He thought it was a missed opportunity not having Asuka spit green mist in Becky's eyes when she went in for the hug to congratulate her. Spoken like a true heel. CM Punk, always a heel at heart. Look, that would have made Asuka the ultimate heel, with all the other women in the division chasing after her. He said trying to get revenge for Becky. If they actually had some strong baby faces set up already to replace Becky Lynch in that Raw Women's division, you know what? I would agree with him. I would agree with CM Punk. That would have been a cool idea. I think Asuka misting Becky in that moment would have been fantastic. If they had somebody strong enough to challenge an evil heel Asuka, great. But they couldn't do it because they have nobody else ready to replace Becky as the top babyface on the Raw brand. Asuka's been a heel. Now she's going to be a babyface, I assume, because they don't have anybody else ready to step up into that spot. Bianca Belair is not established yet enough on that show. Charlotte has the NXT women's title, and she's a heel. Liv Morgan is still trying to figure out who the hell she is, apparently. Natty, no. I think Ruby Riott has lost every match she's been in since she came back. She's nowhere ready for that spot. She may never be. Nia Jax, absolutely not. Shayna's a heel. Zelina's a heel. Primarily, she's a manager anyway. So you don't have that one person outside of Asuka who can step in and try to take her place unless you promote somebody else from NXT. And the person that they could have promoted coming out of WrestleMania from NXT, who I think could be the next big babyface who could carry a brand, is Rhea Ripley. And her losing the NXT Women's Championship at WrestleMania could have set her up very nicely for that. I said Bianca Belair is not established enough yet on the show. Well, we at least had Rhea on Raw in the weeks leading up to WrestleMania for her big match with Charlotte. She had a big WrestleMania match. She is more ready to step into that spot than Bianca would be. Although I think Bianca will eventually get there. I could see Rhea and Bianca being A1 and A2 in these divisions. Whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, I think they are two of the big female stars of the future that are going to carry these divisions on Raw and SmackDown. But if they wanted to, then Rhea could have been that person to step up, and they didn't go down that road. But to go back to Becky, she had not wrestled the match since her WrestleMania win over Shayna. And they had they known about the pregnancy, obviously, she would not have wrestled, and she certainly wouldn't have won and kept the championship. She found out about this in early April, which would have been right after WrestleMania had already been taped. If WrestleMania were live this year, I assume the finish of that match would have been very different. Or, again, it wouldn't have happened at all. Apparently, the original plan was for Becky to wrestle Nia Jax at Money in the Bank and then, rekindle their old feud. And Shayna Baszler was going to win the women's Money in the Bank. And then she would have cashed in at some point on Becky to win the championship. That was the original plan. Which is why I said, during my Money in the Bank review, all this talk about Shayna Baszler being buried. That's it. She's dead. She's buried. It was nonsense. And I said it that night. She's not dead. She's not buried. She's going to win the championship. It's not like she was pinned. It's not like she was thrown off the top of Titan Tower. Although I guess if she had been, she would have been right back on TV the next night like nothing ever happened anyway. So the baby is due in December. She told People magazine she's always wanted to have kids. She's always wanted to be a mom. But she was very career focused, and so she never knew if it would actually ever come to be. And it's tough because, she re-signed with WWE for a lot of money, I'm sure. Believe me, WWE did not sign Becky Lynch last year to a new contract for peanuts, okay? So she re-signed. She probably got a nice payday out of it. And it's a tough choice to make, is now the right time? Step away from my career when I'm having the greatest success that I may ever have. But if you want to have a child and you want to start a family, you've got to make a choice. Becky Lynch is 33 years old. And it does get harder to conceive and start a family the older you get. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the two of them. I wish them nothing but the best. I wish them nothing but all the health and happiness in the world. I look at this a couple of ways. In the short term, it's a big loss for WWE. At a time when they can use all the star power that they can get, they just lost their top female performer for the next year to 18 months. And maybe forever, if she chooses not to come back. She wants to have more than one child. She may not come back full-time. Her full-time career could be over. Some woman came back after having kids and some didn't. Mickie James had a child. She came back. Maria Kanellis had a kid. She came back. Eve Torres, she left to start a family, among other things, and she never came back for a match. She's done some appearances for WWE, but by and large, Eve has stayed away. She stayed retired, and she was only, I think, 28 or 29 when she asked for her release. It depends on the individual. And Becky even said in that same interview, in that People interview, she said, I've accomplished everything that I ever wanted to do. What is left for her to do? She's been the champion. She's been a Royal Rumble winner. She's headlined a WrestleMania. That may never happen again. If she never sets foot in a ring again, which I think she absolutely will, she will still go down as one of the most decorated women to ever work for that company. She has that status forever. You can debate the effect that she had on ratings and tickets and merchandise, things of that nature, but she was positioned for well over a year and a half, as the top female, and not even, I won't even say top female, one of the top 2 or 3 stars, period, male or female, in the entire company. And for a period of time, she was the most talked about star in all of wrestling, leading up to WrestleMania last year. And think about it. This is a woman who suffered a career-ending head injury in 2006. Didn't think she would ever wrestle again. Didn't even come back to try again until 2013. 7 years went by between that injury and when she decided to make a comeback and she got signed to WWE Developmental. 7 years. So nobody can ever take that away from her. Coming back, getting the fan support that she got in 2018. As a wrestler, I would imagine that you would kill for a reaction and this groundswell of fan support like Becky Lynch got in the summer of 2018. Daniel Bryan got it. It vaulted him into the main event of WrestleMania, just like it vaulted Becky Lynch into the main event of WrestleMania. That and a well-placed fist by Nia Jax. If that punch doesn't happen, it's Charlotte and Ronda. That's your WrestleMania main event last year. Bottom line. Becky Lynch was never supposed to be in the WrestleMania main event. That spot would have been, it was talked about for over a year in advance, that it was going to be Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. But the stars aligned. The stars aligned for her at just the right time. Her story peaked at WrestleMania last year. And this is the part that Becky Lynch fans may not want to hear. But even though she held that championship for a long time, she held that championship for over a year, she had one of the more forgettable reigns as women's champion. The memorable part was her rise and her journey to get to the title. That's what happens sometimes. The journey and the struggle and the fight, overcoming the odds and all the obstacles, no different than when Austin had to run through all of Vince McMahon's obstacles back in the day. But, it's not just Austin McMahon. Every great babyface wrestling story probably going back to the beginning of time. You can pick them out even when the Horsemen were running amok in the NWA and you had Dusty Rhodes fighting against the Horsemen. Sometimes the best story is the struggle and the chase and the fight, and once you get there, you've peaked, and it's all downhill from there. Now, it doesn't always work that way. Some people can maintain, and part of it is not just the talent, but it's also the booking and the writing and all that. But the memorable part was the rise. Everything that came after was basically this downward slope. The stuff with Lacey Evans, tagging with Seth against Lacey and Baron Corbin. I mean, that was our hell for the entire summer last year. And then it was a feud with Natalya, which was hardly anything to get excited about, although they did have a few good matches. I'm not saying some of the matches weren't good and well wrestled, but, come on, it's Becky Lynch against Natalya. What is there to get excited about? Natalya's been there forever and a day. Then we got the great Hell in a Cell match with Becky and Sasha Banks. That was one and done. That was one match and that was it. It was over. And thankfully, they did revisit the storyline with Asuka. And she got her win back over Asuka. I mean, they had to come back to that story. But even the best babyfaces had short title reigns that led to them having to chase to get it back. They would win the championship, maybe at WrestleMania, and then 2, 3, 4 months later, they would get screwed and they would have to fight back and chase after it. And that can help sometimes, I think, make things more interesting. But instead, they kept the belt on this woman for over 12 months. And at no point during those 12 months did it ever feel like she was as big of a deal as she was, after that SummerSlam match in 2018, right on through the three-way with Charlotte and Ronda. Part of that was that she also got away from a lot of the social media stuff that I think got people really talking about her. And she lost her rival. She lost her main foil when Ronda Rousey went home. That, to me, was the biggest blow of all when it came to, Becky's rise. When Ronda went away, she didn't have that person to play off of. Not only just the person, but here's this outsider coming in. Who does she think she is? I've worked my whole life for this. It was this great... Ronda Rousey was the perfect person at the perfect time for a pissed off Becky Lynch who felt like she was held down for so long to go up against. You can't manufacture that. But WWE has now lost its top female star and their top male star at the same time, both because of kids. You see? You see what kids can do? You see the havoc they can wreak with everyone's plans? Roman Reigns, for the sake of his family, he claims, he's gone indefinitely. And now Becky Lynch is gone indefinitely. And that's bad for WWE. I see comments from people, and yes, I heard what Jim Cornette had to say. I had to, because I got so many messages about it. I figured, let me listen to this instead of reading it from a transcript. I want to make sure I'm hearing this right and I get the full context and everything. And Jim Cornette is entitled to whatever opinion that he may have, no matter how dated and how asinine it may be. But, ragging on her because she didn't stick it out another 2 years or another 3 years to make more money before having a kid, when she would have been 36 years old. If Jim Cornette had his way, Becky Lynch would have been 35, 36, 37 years old, and then she could turn around and have a kid. I especially like the suggestion that maybe she should have waited until she got hurt and was out rehabbing an injury to have a kid. That way, she'd already be out for 6 months, 8 months, if it was a serious enough injury. That's the perfect time to go pop out a kid, because what a great time to get pregnant and have a baby when you're laid up at home with an injury. Hey, all you ladies out there, you know what would have made your pregnancy just a little bit easier? A broken neck, or a broken leg, or a miserable concussion. That's the only thing you were missing. Thank God Jim Cornette is not an OBGYN. What she does with her life and when she wants to start a family is of no concern to Jim Cornette or anyone else. She's made her money. She'll continue to make her money, at least for the time being. Her husband, I'm sure, is making bank, working for the same company. I think she'll be all right. People raise kids on a lot less than what Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch are probably making combined, since money is such a big deal to Jim Cornette. I think they'll be okay. And if there's one thing the WWE will always want on their shows, it's big names. Becky Lynch still has name value. She will always have that name value that WWE craves. Every wrestling promoter, to some degree, is a star fucker. Are you kidding me? Whether it's a Hollywood celebrity, a television celebrity, or just a big name who had great success at some time, some big legend in the wrestling business, they're all star fuckers. And they all want them on their show. That will never change. She will have name value 18 months from now, 2 years from now. I would even argue the longer she stays out, they'll want her even more. Believe me, this company is not going to close its doors to Becky Lynch, especially not with AEW around. The Edge comeback story proved that. And she will have a spot if she wants one. So unless Jim Cornette is her fucking accountant, don't be so worried about Becky Lynch. Now with her leaving, it presents the women in WWE with an opportunity, and this is where it can be a good thing. Her stepping away and relinquishing the championship, it forces them now to put somebody else in the spotlight, and it gives somebody else a chance now to step up. No different than any big name that has ever gone down with an injury before. That has kept them off of television for months and months on end. There's always somebody ready to take their spot. Who will take Becky Lynch's spot? Is it somebody new, like a Rhea Ripley? Is it somebody like Sasha Banks? Does she eventually make the move to Raw and get positioned as the boss, the real true boss of the brand? Is it someone that we haven't even heard of before? So that has me kind of interested. Who's going to take her spot? Because I don't think Asuka is the long-term choice. She'd be the long-term choice for me, but for WWE, I don't see her as being their long-term choice. Shayna Baszler may take the championship from her, but who is going to step up or who is going to be positioned as the person to help shake up the division and kind of be the number one babyface now on that brand? Somebody asked me if I had any favorite Becky Lynch matches. I do, actually. I've got 3 of them. When I look back at her career, the 3, in my opinion, the 3 best Becky Lynch matches, my 3 favorite Becky Lynch matches, are the TakeOver Unstoppable match with Sasha Banks in 2015, which was really the first time I took notice of how good she could be. The focus really a lot was on Charlotte and Sasha at that time, not so much Bayley and not so much Becky. And that was the first time I said, wow, this was a damn good match. Becky Lynch, she even got a standing ovation, even though she lost when that match was over. And I think she opened a lot of eyes with that match. So, the focus, again, was on the other 2 horsewomen. And then all of a sudden, Becky Lynch, I think she opened a lot of eyes with that match. The Evolution match with Charlotte in 2018, which was excellent. And her Hell in a Cell match last year with Sasha Banks. So 2 of her best matches came against Sasha Banks. It's too bad, though, that a segment like the one on Monday night, which will probably be the last time we see Becky Lynch in the ring for a very long time, took place in an empty building in front of no fans, because that's the kind of segment that would have gotten a nice reaction in front of a crowd of people.